Julian confronts John at his new apartment. Lennon's explanation left him devastated. The rain, a perpetual lament in Liverpool, slicked the cobblestones, reflecting the neon bleed of the city. A figure, cloaked in shadow and a heavy, sodden coat, moved through the labyrinthine streets. Julian, the name, a whisper, a curse, an inheritance. He carried it like a phantom limb, a constant ache. For years, the city had been a ghost, a backdrop to a childhood defined by absence. Now, it was a hunting ground. The whispers had grown louder, rumors of a return, a new sanctuary, a new apartment. John Lennon, the name, a legend, a wound. He found it on the edge of the docks, a brutalist block of concrete and glass, stark against the ancient brickwork. A fortress, not a home. The kind of place a man builds when he wants to disappear, even from himself. The air tasted of salt and forgotten dreams. Every breath was a question, every heartbeat a drumbeat of impending revelation. He had chased this moment across continents, through years of silence and speculation. Now, the door stood before him, a final barrier to a truth he both craved and feared. The city held its breath. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Julian stood before the door, the cold metal a mirror to his own resolve. He pressed the bell. A hollow chime echoed within. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. The click of a lock. The door opened, revealing him. Older, yes. But the eyes, those piercing, knowing eyes, were unmistakable. John Lennon, the myth, the man, now standing in the muted light of a Liverpool hallway. The apartment was sparse, almost monastic. Unpacked boxes, a single armchair, a record player silent in the corner. No warmth, no life, just the scent of stale cigarettes and unspoken history. Julian. John's voice was a gravelly murmur, a sound Julian had only known from records, from distant memories. It held no surprise, only a weary recognition. I knew you'd come. Julian stepped inside, the door closing behind him with a soft thud, sealing them in. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of decades. Julian saw the lines etched around John's eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. The legend was just a man, trapped in a moment he couldn't escape. Julian's gaze swept the room, searching for any sign of the father he'd imagined, the one who might have cared. He found only emptiness. Why? Julian's voice was a raw whisper, barely audible above the drumming rain against the window panes. It was the question that had gnawed at him, a constant, festering wound. Why the silence? Why the distance? Why me? John turned, moving to the window, his back to Julian. The city lights blurred through the rain-streaked glass, a distorted canvas of their shared past. He took a long, slow drag from a cigarette, the cherry glowing like a dying ember. Liverpool, John began, his voice low, a confession to the city itself. This place, it gets into your bones. It breeds a certain kind of man. Hard, broken, always searching for something just out of reach. He paused, exhaling a plume of smoke that dissolved into the dim light. I was never meant for fatherhood, Julian. Not in the way you deserved. Not in the way any child deserves. The words hung in the air, sharp and cold. A blade, not a balm. Julian felt a tremor run through him, not of anger, but of a chilling dread. This wasn't the apology he'd rehearsed in his mind. This was something far darker. John finally turned. His eyes, once so full of fire, now held a profound, almost desolate weariness. My own father, he was a ghost, a sailor, always at sea, always absent. My mother, she gave me away to Aunt Mimi, a woman who taught me discipline, but not tenderness, not the kind that nurtures a child. He gestured vaguely around the Stark apartment. This emptiness, Julian, it's not just in this room. It's in me. It was always in me. He spoke of the early days, the raw ambition, the desperate hunger for escape. The music, it was a roar, a way to drown out the silence, the fear of being forgotten. And when the roar became a hurricane, it swept everything away. Everything that wasn't the music. Everything that wasn't the dream. He looked at Julian, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. You were a casualty, Julian. An innocent caught in the wake of a storm I couldn't control. The storm I didn't even understand. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was simply stating a brutal, unalterable fact. The truth was not a comfort. It was a mirror, reflecting a legacy of brokenness. I saw you, Julian interjected, his voice cracking, in photographs, on television, with them. With him, the unspoken name hung heavy. A testament to the other son, the other life. You were there for him. You taught him. You loved him. John flinched, a subtle tightening around his eyes. Love, he scoffed, a bitter sound. What did I know of love? I knew obsession. I knew creation. I knew the desperate need to fill a void that screamed inside me. He walked to a small, dusty bookshelf, pulling out a worn copy of a book. This city, he murmured, tracing the cover. It's a city of ghosts, of forgotten dreams, of men who leave their mark, but lose themselves in the process. He turned back to Julian, his voice dropping to a near whisper, filled with a chilling self-awareness. The genius, Julian, it's a parasite. It feeds on everything, on relationships, on peace, on the very soul of the man who carries it. He looked at his hands, calloused, scarred. I gave everything to the music, every ounce of myself. There was nothing left for you, nothing left for anyone. The confession was not an excuse, but a brutal dissection. A man laid bare, revealing the monstrous cost of his own legend. Julian stood frozen, the words a physical blow. He had come seeking closure, a reason, a path to understanding. Instead, he found a chasm. A man so consumed by his own internal battles, by the relentless pursuit of his art, that he had become incapable of the most fundamental human connections. John's explanation wasn't an act of cruelty, but a stark, unvarnished truth. He hadn't abandoned Julian out of malice, but out of an inherent, almost pathological inability to be present, to be a father. The devastation was profound. It wasn't the anger he'd expected, but a crushing emptiness, a finality, the hope he'd unknowingly clung to, the fantasy of a father who might one day explain, apologize, and embrace him, shattered into a million pieces. He saw not a villain, but a man trapped, a prisoner of his own making, his own genius. The realization was a bitter pill. He was not a forgotten son, but a consequence, a footnote in the grand, tumultuous narrative of John Lennon. The rain outside intensified, mirroring the storm within Julian's soul. Julian turned, his gaze fixed on the door, the escape. There was nothing left to say. No more questions to ask. The truth, however devastating, had been laid bare. He had come seeking a father and found only the ghost of a man, consumed by his own legend, his own demons. John watched him, a silent, almost resigned acceptance in his eyes. He offered no further words, no final plea. He simply existed, a monument to his own fractured history. As Julian reached for the doorknob, he paused, a final, lingering glance at the man who was both his origin and his undoing. The apartment, cold and stark, felt like a tomb. The city outside, with its ceaseless rain and echoing past, seemed to mock his quest. He opened the door, stepping back into the Liverpool night, the cold air, a stark contrast to the burning ache in his chest. The door closed softly behind him, severing the last fragile thread. He walked away, not with anger, but with a profound, aching understanding. The legend of John Lennon would live forever. But the father, the man who could have been, had died long ago, leaving behind only echoes and an unbearable legacy of devastation. Some truths, once revealed, leave you not with peace, but with an eternal, haunting silence.